The taste isn't at all what I expected. I only heard last night that borage flower tea is great for stress relief, but I expected the tea to taste more like cucumbers because that is how the fresh flowers taste. And you use borage in drinks like Pimm's and gin and tonics, also in edible flower salads and other dishes. But most of all, I grow borage for the bees because they absolutely adore the flowers, and in the height of summer they're covered in bees. I'm Tanya from Lovely Greens, and today we're going to be having a look at the allotment garden. We'll be touching on the home garden, and I run these tours of the gardens every month or so, and they're my way of showing you what's going on here and to give you a little bit of an update on my sowing and planting progress, and that's to help you, especially if you are in the same climate. Now here on the Isle of Man, it's about 8 or 9 on the USDA hardiness zone. I would actually estimate that we're very similar to the Pacific Northwest, although a little bit cooler, especially in summers. Never really gets that cold here, it never really gets that hot. It's kind of a Goldilocks zone for growing things, although a lot of tender plants like tomatoes and eggplants, so aubergines, they do need protection. Anyway, let's go have a look at the garden. In the last video that I made from here at the allotment garden, I was sat on that little rock down there to the right, and I had just planted 4 rows, or 6 rows rather, of new potatoes, early potatoes. And in the time since, I've been busy. If you recall, this was all covered with landscaping fabric. And so I've uncovered it and I put in quite a few more rows of potatoes. And there's second earlies and main crops in there, lots of different varieties. And I think you'll agree with me when I say that we're gonna have some spuds this year. This bed here is still covered in landscaping fabric, but this is going to be the Brassica bed. So this is where the cabbages and the kaleets and Brussels sprouts and all of those are going to be planted. And they're actually, a lot of them are growing in the greenhouse at home right now. So the next time you see an allotment video, this patch will look quite a bit different. This over here is my main patch, and this is what I've been working on for several years now. And it started off very similar to that, and over time, suppressing weeds, cultivating new beds, it's transformed into something that's a lot more manageable and I think nicer looking as well. The first 2 beds here at the top, they're mainly different herbs and flowers, and I use them for skincare and also in the kitchen. These down here are chamomile, and they're so far advanced from chamomile that would be sown from seed, because these are actually grown from self-sown seed from last year's chamomile, and they've overwintered. So they're much bigger and actually quite a bit hardier. They're used to the climate. My gardens are so green at this time of the year because I have a lot of perennials. So in this picture in front of us, we have garlic chives, we've got normal chives, oregano, melissa balm, sage, blackcurrant sage. In the center, those are sweet peas. And the really green leafy ones are perennials, meaning that they come back year after year. And so when it starts getting warm, they start to flush out in leaf, and they're very, very low maintenance. A lot of the plants over here in the flower patch, the wildflower, wildlife patch, are perennial too. So there's comfrey, there's knapweed, all kinds of things in there. The Welsh onions, which are edible. And I've done a little bit of work here, cleared it out. I've removed some of the more, I guess, aggressive plants in here. I'm sure they'll make an appearance later on, and I'll have to dig those back up. But I've got some peonies that I'm really trying to start off there. And this plant over here, this is really interesting. This is a perennial herb that not very many people know or use, and it's called Lovage. And it tastes just like celery, and you use the leaves and the stalks in that same way. At the top of my plot, I keep an American style mailbox, and this is where I keep a few tools, some extra gloves, a kneeling pad. It's just convenient tools for when I'm here on the plot. The last time I really showed you the strawberry bed, it was pretty ravaged looking because I just cleaned it. But I've mulched it again, and I've also planted another couple of rows of Dubois strawberries, and they're over there in the far two rows. And those are the type that are day neutral. So that means as long as it's sunny, they have enough moisture and it isn't too hot or too cold, they'll produce strawberries. And look here, the very first strawberry flowers of the year. Can't wait for the first harvest. The garlic bed looks amazing. They've done so well through the winter. On this far end, I have a couple of varieties of soft neck garlic. And those types do better in milder climates, and they're also storers. They last a lot longer once you harvest them. There are these ones that are really quite tall and stocky. Now next door to them, these are the hard neck garlic. And these are the kind that produce the scapes, so the garlic scapes that need to be nipped off early in the summer. And they are said to have much better, richer flavor, and cooks prefer them. To be honest, I like all garlic, including elephant garlic. So that's what these guys are. And they look quite a bit different because elephant garlic isn't actually a garlic, it's related to leeks. The square bed right in front of us is where I'll be planting pumpkin and squash, probably at the end of next month. And then at the top of it, I've transplanted my dahlias. And dahlias do very well just left in the ground here. And I transplanted them from over there by those soft fruit, and they were in that same row, to over at the top of this bed. And I've done that because the dahlias and the soft fruit were really crowding each other out. And I think it would be really lovely to have the dahlias right there, right next to the pond. The bed that runs along the east side of my plot has always been a little bit wilder than the rest. And almost everything in here has actually seeded itself. So the feverfew, the borage, the soft fruit I did plant, and there's some red currants in here. And then up here, more excitingly, I have 7 blueberry bushes. And there are these ones right here with the pinkish colored leaves right now. And I just noticed over here that there are loads and loads of flowers. So these bell-shaped flowers here. And all of these will transform into berries that I'll be picking from July. You've had a really good look at the allotment garden now, and there are a lot of things growing here, especially perennials. But a lot of the beds are bare, and I'm not sowing that many seeds direct at the moment. So it's better, especially in my climate, to start seedlings off under cover. So that means under grow lights or in a greenhouse, and then give them that head start before planting them out in a direct garden situation like this, especially when it comes to frost tender plants like beans and pumpkins. So on that note, let's go back to the home garden and I'll show you what's going on back there. We're in my office now, and this is where I have a couple of grow lights. Now, if you are starting out, you do not need to go out and invest in grow lights, but for me, they're a great way to start off seedlings in a controlled place. So I can keep an eye on the water, the light, and the temperature is relatively constant. And then once they get big enough, I plant them into modules and then take them out into the greenhouse where we'll go next. So down here, I have an entire tray of different types of beans. So this one is runner bean Polestar, and I just write the names on the side. This one is runner bean Moonlight. And I have quite a few different climbing French beans in there as well. And these take about 8 to 10 days to germinate. And I planted or sowed them, I would say about 4 days ago. So they still have a bit of time before I start to see life. And then up here, that is an entire tray of different pumpkins and squash. And they take 5 to 10 days to germinate. So I'm keeping an eye on those. And over here, in the front, this is parsley, so it's a plain-leaved parsley. This over here is summer savory. And on the far side, you can't really see it very well, but that's hyssop, and it's a bee-friendly herb. Now for the compost indoors, it's best to sterilize, and that way you can avoid fungus gnats, which are these tiny little flies that fly around and lay eggs in your compost, and their larvae actually disrupt the roots of plants. But with this compost, I didn't do it. I skipped a step. So I also have some fly paper over here, and that's just to catch any of the fungus gnats that do emerge from the compost. And it's a good thing I did, because there are a couple of flies on there. I should also say that if you're on Instagram or social media and you see gardeners with really big grow light setups, they're either going to be hydroponics gardeners, or in many cases, they're gardeners that live in really cool climates and they need that jump start in spring. Lots and lots of seedlings in here, and I've been planting some of them out. We'll go out and have a look in a second. So I've got spinach in modules, I've got tatsoi, Japanese green boy, which is new for me this year. What is this one? Kamasuna, that's also new for me. Some Pak Choy and chard there on the end. And these guys will just all stay here in the greenhouse. It's a little bit cooler in here, especially in the evenings and at night. And then eventually I will harden them off, which means putting them outside during the day and bringing them back in at night. And you do that for a week just to acclimatize them to daytime temperatures and wind and things like that. And a lot of gardeners will touch their plants like this. And I've seen someone ask questions about it. And this is also something that helps them to get used to wind, because in this scenario, in a greenhouse, they're not going to be used to any kind of wind or atmosphere outside blowing them around. So this can actually get them used to that and makes them grow stronger. Over here, I've got a tray filled with water and 2 containers of watercress growing. And this is a spicy salad green, and I'm about to plant it out in the container garden. So I'm trying to think of the right kind of setup for that. The raised bed just outside the window there is where this tray of lettuce is destined to grow. And this is another tray of the Morton's Secret Mix, and this is from the Real Seed catalog. And again, you can sow lettuce outside, and I have some that I have sown outside, but growing things in modules means that you can keep a really close eye on them and that they grow a lot better than in circumstances where slugs can get at them and wind and rain and bad weather. The spicy greens mix that I planted into this root pouch are really getting to the size where I can start picking them. And I have actually been nibbling on them when I come in here to the greenhouse. You can see a stem right there. I've also dug around and taken some plants out individually and then put them in the green stalk planter that's on the patio. These are all plug plants, and they're different herbs, including different types of mint, and I've got chives. They're savory, so winter savory there, tarragon, fennel, and in the back, these are all stevia, which is a plant that's sweeter than sugar, so you can use the leaves as a sugar substitute. And I bought them all as mixed packs of various herbs from a UK company, and I'm so pleased with it. It has saved so much time and money, because just buying the individual packets of seed, which would have cost a fortune really. It's a lot cooler today than it has been. And I'm glad that I put the fleece tunnels over the seedlings that I planted outside. So in this raised bed here, you'll notice that I've got some peas. So those were the ones that were growing in the gutter, and I planted them out, I would say about a week ago, put them in, and they're already starting to grow on these supports. And this is just willow that I had left over. And look at them. They're finding their way upwards. And this is to keep Fluffy Cat out of here and Chives. But inside this tunnel, you'll see some of the seedlings that I've been growing in the greenhouse. And I've put 3 rows in there. On the left, beetroot, the center, spinach, and on the far right, those are all kohlrabi, which is a swollen root cabbagey vegetable if you've not tried it before. and this hoop will give it the seedlings cover and protection from not only cats, but birds as well. I've been sowing a lot of seeds recently, and one of them is purple sprouting broccoli, this vegetable. And it takes 9 months to a year for them to fully mature. And you pick the stems, break them off, and then they form more of these. They're just individual spears rather than heads. And you eat and cook them the same way as green broccoli. And when you cook them, the purple changes to green, fortunately or unfortunately. And eventually, if you don't pick them, they will start to form flowers like this, but those are also edible. And there's plenty more for us to be feasting on in the weeks to come. Let's have a look at the potatoes that we planted a couple of weeks ago. I can start to see some leaves. Some leaves there. Leaves there as well. These ones are a little bit deeper, so it'll be, I would say, another week until we start to see some leaves pop out of those. So what I'll do next is just wait for them to fully emerge, and then when they're about 6 inches tall, I'll put more compost in these bags, and we'll be following the progress of these potatoes over the summer. I've had a few people ask how the David Austin roses are doing, and as you can see, they're doing pretty good. The one on the left, where there's a bit more sun, seems to be doing much better, but the one on the right is doing fine too. And so this will be their 2nd year of growing, and hopefully they'll be climbing up this trellis and rewarding us with flowers and rose hips later on this year. The container garden is starting to green up nicely. I've moved a few pots from out of the greenhouse, so the scented geraniums are all at the top. And we're seeing some seeds start to germinate as well, including this lettuce, and I sowed that just a couple of weeks ago. And also the rocket, so this is arugula, and that shot up within, I would say, 2 or 3 days. It's really quick, hence the name. And we've got radish seedlings starting. I've planted some sweet peas here on this willow frame that I wove. And then the veggie pod. This is doing really well. I sowed radishes in here, so that's what's here in the front. There's 2 different types. No sign of the coriander yet, so that's the cilantro leaf. But we see some spinach here, also some mixed spicy salads, and lettuces over there too, little tiny babies. So that's what's going on in the allotment and home gardens in April. If you have questions on anything that you've seen that I've not quite touched upon enough for you to understand, leave me your question as a comment down below. And I will be doing another one of these types of videos in May and every month after, and that way you'll be able to see the progress of the garden and how I grow it. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next week for another video. Bye for now.